Good evening, this is the Oscar Expert here with Brother Bro, and it's time for final Oscar predictions. Now, unfortunately, we are leaving to go to Sundance on the day that the BAFTA nominations come out, and we always want to wait for those to influence our predictions, so we're probably going to end up changing predictions a little bit and adding little asides in, depending on what happens. But for Best Picture, we don't even have to worry about this. We're predicting it, you're predicting it.
It's the PGA 10. And some people may be panicking, thinking, oh my god, they can't go 10 out of 10 with PGA. But in other years, when PGA you usually know what the PGA does that is not going to repeat at the Oscars, whether it's like Wakanda Forever, Wonder Woman, Deadpool. Those are just the superhero ones.
Yeah.
But like Glass Onion, I think got nominated here.
I mean, how uncharacteristic of the PGA to go for Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall. And movies that we know are getting probably above the line nominations and
that we were already predicting to get above the line nominations.
That we were already
And what does
predicting
this
in general.
say? This 10 is really locked up. And that,
Yeah.
I don't want to get too cozy with it. We can never get too cozy. But I think on Oscar nomination morning, I feel confident that I'm just going to be there we go. There's Zone of Interest, there's Anatomy of a Fall, there's everything that we thought was going to happen.
I think it's definitely going to be that way.
There's a nice gap between 10 and the next one, whereas last year...
What is the next one? We don't even know. It's 9 out of 10 of the BAFTA long list, except for All of Us Strangers, and that also makes a lot of sense. We know that American Fiction is going to replace All of Us Strangers from the BAFTA long list. Everything about this makes perfect sense.
And it's 8 out of 10 Critics' Choice, which is also very, normal. You know what I realized is that every single Best Picture nominee was nominated at the Golden Globes somewhere.
They had 6 slots in every category.
That's true. That's
obviously. True. But at the same time, it makes me think that the Golden Globes may have had a positive influence on the other members of awards bodies, because the PGA nominating Zone and Anatomy, I mean, that's crazy for them. The Color Purple, even in places where it does well, like Critics' Choice and SAG, it's not even doing well enough. Where's Fantasia? If that movie was getting into Best Picture, I would need to see Fantasia doing well. What? People can say that having a SAG ensemble nomination is important, but look, SAG going 4 out of 5 with the ensemble category is very normal. It's very normal for them not to be 5 out of 5.
Yeah, but I think if we're looking for what's the next one, I think you could make an argument that Color Purple is number 11.
But Color Purple's getting fucked. The Costume Guild and the Production Design Guild, what is it going to give? Daniel Brooks' picture?
It just isn't.
That'd be insane.
Saltburn, no SAG nominations? I don't think so.
No presence at SAG.
December, could that be a resurrection? I mean, there's a lot of film Twitter
BAFTA
love
hated
for
it. SAG blanked on it.
The only people who like this movie, critics, film Twitter, Letterboxd.
Not even Critics' Choice, though.
Not even Critics' Choice.
And Letterboxd also...
normies don't like it. IMDb doesn't like it. Audiences don't like it.
No.
SAG, BAFTA shortlist didn't like... it's just not quite in there. It would be an absolute shock.
Spider-Verse is maxing out at, score and visual effects and animated feature.
Yeah.
That package, I don't think that's enough to get Best Picture, though.
If it gets those 3 nominations... That's very good.
Technically, it gets song
That's
2.
very good.
Could get song 2. The Iron Claw is not happening.
It's not happening.
Nobody's been doing anything with that movie at all.
No
It's
one's
crazy.
touching it.
It's actually crazy how they haven't.
Air's
done.
Air's pretty dead.
Air's pretty fucking RIP.
Get that. Get that animal.
Not getting any SAG nominations. Holy shit. Air's dead.
So I know this is crazy, but I'm going to tell you what my number 11 is The Color Purple, and my number 12 is fuck it. I just can't see anything else. Why not put Origin at number 12?
I think that Origin's having a To Leslie light moment.
Yeah.
Now, some people would argue that it's having a full-blown To Leslie moment, but that's only because... So Frances Fisher, who was the first to talk about To Leslie in that way, is doing the same thing with Origin.
She's trying to atone for the reputation she got for whatever.
All the publicity...
Promoting a white woman over...
Sure.
Yeah.
That may be what she's doing.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
Who knows? I don't know.
But
this
anyway,
person.
they did not have the stacked list of people who were going crazy about To Leslie going for Origin. That actually didn't happen. Cher tweeted about it. That's the other most famous
Angelina
person.
Jolie hosted an event at her house, a private event, very small, 24 people, and this was a few days ago. So yeah, it's right on the cusp of voting. I get it. You know what's going on.
But it's not
here.
the same.
And then they do a screening later. So the screening's full of Academy Awards people. They're trying to expose Academy Awards members to the film right before it comes out. Good strategy. Origin did not pick up any organic support. It just didn't. Critics groups didn't do it. The movie came out too late to even try. There's just no organic support. It's a last resort. Okay, let's see if the industry feels passionate about this project.
And also using that as part of the narrative, like, oh, this movie's been being ignored. It is a little weird how little attention the new Ava DuVernay movie is getting, considering how high profile she is as a director.
But it's not out. Is it?
It is. It's in limited release.
Yeah.
So is Zone of Interest. And that's doing fine. But also the movie's weird.
Yes.
It was weird to market. It takes
Although
risks
I feel like
that I think don't
that's fair,
land
but
with everybody.
If you think Origin's is the kind of movie you're interested in, like you're interested in, you know, sociology, that kind of thing, or you just want to see the next Ava DuVernay movie, you should go watch it. I still think it was worth watching. It's an interesting project.
But I'm not surprised it's not landing with everybody.
Yeah. Some people love it. Some people don't know what to do with it. Some people think that it should be a documentary instead.
I think that the only nominations this can go for is actress. And, you know, there's been, like, some bits about her going viral lately, like handing out flyers on the street because no one's seeing it, which is sad. There's been publicity for the movie in the past week that it hasn't had before. Like, Ava DuVernay was at, like, a Hollywood Directors Roundtable and stuff like that.
But you don't want to feel like the movie's a losing cause, like you're throwing your vote out.
I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't see evidence that it's on the same scale as, like, how many people were getting behind To Leslie.
I think it's also, To Leslie was a little bit easier because it was like, okay, this is Andrea Riseborough, and it's the lead actress. Origin, it's like, you don't really have room in director there.
It's kind of actress, it's kind of
It's
picture.
kind of actress, it's kind of picture. Like, what else is there? Nothing really else. I'm not going to predict that, though.
Best director, this is tricky, tough. Nolan's winning, Scorsese's getting nominated, Lanthimos is nearly a sure thing. But I would leave like a very small percentage that he could get snubbed, and it'd be just because there's a lot of people that I feel like they want to have in here.
Yeah,
Lanthimos makes no sense as a snub, but it's just because it's so packed. Greta Gerwig's been doing flawlessly, basically. Do you think that if she missed BAFTA, you'd consider that like?
I don't really know if I honestly don't even know if I think BAFTA's here or there for her. It really doesn't change my prediction that much. My feeling on Greta Gerwig is that because Barbie is like a blockbusting film, it's not really connected to like indie filmmaking, you know? Just in the crafts and everything, which it doesn't need to be, but because that's more of the director's branch tastes, it feels like such a studio movie that maybe they go the way of like Denis Villeneuve and Dune. Coming in with a Best Director update post BAFTA, I feel like my hand is basically forced to predict Alexander Payne at this point, considering how strong Holdovers was. Got Best Film over Barbie too. Like not only Best Director, but like Best Film. The Best Barbie. Film is more important to me because like, you know, we can talk about the jury all we want or whatever. Barbie missing Best Film in a lot of categories, getting only 5 BAFTA nominations. I mean, I think that must show some kind of weakness in the type of voting body that's going to go nuts for the Zone of Interest. Payne, I'm going to have to concede. Like, that was also his first BAFTA nomination for Best Director, by the way. This is the 5 that makes the most sense, and I have to snub Gerwig. Now, some people think Lanthimos gets snubbed. I chalk it up too much to the jury that he's not there. The same with Scorsese. I don't really... I mean, I guess I can see it just because of the competition, but it's hard for me to think they're vulnerable. It's unfortunate. You know, we have 3 like extremely strong contenders. Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, from women directors. It seems at least like 50-50 that none of them will receive a nomination.
I have to have Glazer in. I've been predicting it all year. I got to stick to my guns. And at this point, it seems actually quite likely that Glazer will get in. It'd be insane if he didn't get in. Like,
it would, because it's so on track for a Best Picture nomination.
It's so on track to do well at BAFTA and Oscar. And also, like, when PGA nominates a movie that's international, that gets director. Now, this might break because we have 2 of them this year, and it's hard to see them both squeezing in.
Yeah.
But Glazer, I mean, he also won LA Film Critics and International Society of Film Critics, and those are like the kind of highbrow awards you want to win to, like, you know, be in with this branch.
Yeah,
he has more career backing than Trier, which I think makes him stronger there. And also the movie, like, stylistically, the movie is a major achievement.
Yeah, and it's speaking its own language.
Insanely.
And it's the kind of thing that they like to go out for, and we've always been thinking it was going to happen. So it is simply too late in the game to just give up when Zone of Interest is riding a nice wave. The other thing people are trying to do is Justine Trier for Anatomy of a Fall.
In a way, they should try to do it. Yeah, it also makes sense. Like
it could happen. I mean, Anatomy of a Fall is performing extremely well. It is also on track to get a Best Picture nomination. It got fucking PGA. She just had a moment at the Globes for Screenplay. Not the same category, but...
That's the thing, though. I think people may be overestimating how the movie is being perceived as a directing contender. Because what evidence is there that she's a directing contender? She hasn't gotten any major nominations. She might get BAFTA, like, to be fair. But also, like, you know, so did Julia Ducournau and, you know, Park Chan-wook last year. And those movies didn't even get international feature. Kind of like Edward Berger. last year. He won Best Director at BAFTA.
Yeah, like doesn't have any other films that you can point to.
Nobody can name another Justine Triet movie, unfortunately.
I know she has other films, but none of them have been even close to like what Anatomy of a Fall.
And look, that's important. And last year we noted when Edward Berger didn't get nominated that was actually important.
Yeah.
We said it doesn't just have to do with that it's international.
And then they went and picked Ruben Östlund, the auteur, the Swedish auteur.
Cannes, yeah. Glazer's kind of the Cannes pick, and he's the one with a little bit more like career oomph behind him. And some people even think she's getting in over Glazer.
I still think you can justify putting Celine Song in because this is the director's branch. You know, after the Golden Globes, I was thinking maybe Celine's Song is really strong and Past Lives gets like picture, director, and screenplay combo at Oscars because, you know, the film's not such a bottom five anymore. Maybe it really is like contending in director and it's going to be hard to leave out because that always felt like a movie that they would give a Best Director nomination to, didn't it?
A24 movies tend to get in.
Maybe they wouldn't, I don't know.
Again, this year there's probably going to be 2. She does feel like she could be a surprise. I just can't, like,
it would
this
be
year,
a great surprise. Like,
Yeah.
please give me Celine Song for Past Lives.
Yeah. Another thing about Triet, like, she hasn't been, like, winning critics awards and stuff. It's really been the screenplay push for her.
Yeah.
And I feel like people might just be content with that, you know?
I mean, those are your contenders. Like, Bradley Cooper from Maestro, he didn't get DGA, so he's done. Todd Haynes would be insane for May December. Maybe
That's not gonna happen anymore. They hate it. They hate it. They fucking hate May December. I hate to say it, but it's true. They hate it. Best Actor, Cillian Murphy, Paul Giamatti. I don't fucking know who's winning. Maybe I'll say Paul Giamatti today because I feel like he has SAG edge. Or
No. I don't think that makes you winning. I know that people are eager to look at last year and say, oh, well, like, the SAG's all that matters. Like, if Paul Giamatti gets SAG, Cillian Murphy can have the BAFTA all he wants, and he still is not going to win. We didn't look at it that way, like, 2 years ago. BAFTA, we used to look to that for the lead acting categories more than SAG. Just know that, like, the year you're in and, like, how you're thinking about SAG versus BAFTA is because of what just happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Look, if Paul Giamatti takes SAG and Murphy takes BAFTA, you're not going to be able to call it. Like, it's going to be really hard to call. There's only goodwill for the actors here. And Bradley Cooper, for whatever reason, he doesn't have goodwill, and so he's just got, like, smushed down. It doesn't even make sense to me why people care so much about, like, just casting aspersions on him. I don't even understand
I think he's trying too hard.
I don't know what the problem with trying hard is. Like, for that person who's making the tweet.
Well, some people think it's imitation more than embodiment of a performance.
But, like, then critique the performance, you know? Jeffrey Wright's in. That's that. Everyone knows it. Number 5 is fun. Okay? It's fun.
Leonardo DiCaprio, I could see him sneaking back into the Oscar. It's a little weird, though, because DiCaprio gave a very showy performance, one of his best in Killers of the Flower Moon. But people just aren't as enthusiastic about getting behind him. Maybe it's because they feel like they've done this so many times with DiCaprio and Scorsese or whatever. DiCaprio seems like the actors love him. And they didn't go for him this year. And SAG nominated him for J. Edgar. I feel like that matters that he missed. Yeah. And you could call it a one-off, but the way that I saw it coming, just, I don't know.
Well, it made a lot of sense that the SAGs were going to do Coleman Domingo for Rustin. It just did.
It did.
Like, that 5 felt really cozy to me. Now we're like, we zoom out of SAG, and now I'm like, okay, Coleman Domingo, you're right when you say, like, objectively, if you're not in a Best Picture nominee, you are vulnerable no matter what.
Yeah.
And so he's the only one who's not in a Best Picture nominee.
Generally with SAG, and I did a lot of research into this recently, and I'm also going to acknowledge that last year, this logic failed me when I tried to predict Tom Cruise for Top Gun over Paul Mescal.
Yeah.
All right? But I'm still going to say this because as an overall trend, it's important. Generally, the Oscars will nominate more people that are part of Best Picture nominees in each category than SAG will. And often they'll go neutral, or they'll add 1 or 2. There are only like a few examples out of all the categories where SAG nominated more people in Best Picture than the Oscars did. An instance like saying Jeffrey Wright gets snubbed for Coleman Domingo and then Andrew Scott makes it is fucking insane, and you should not do that. Like, you shouldn't predict there to be less people who are part of Best Picture movies. But I think it's okay to do a neutral swap. For example, Andrew Scott over Coleman Domingo is what we would call a neutral swap. I don't know if this helps us in this category, but I'm just saying it, like, in general, going forward with all the acting categories, that this is a thing that we should consider a little bit. When BAFTA nominates All of Us Strangers for 3 or 4 acting awards and screenplay, we're gonna be like, is that really getting no Oscar nominations? Is it really getting no Oscar nominations?
The Mauritanian got no Oscar nominations. Nocturnal Animals got 1 Oscar nomination.
And it wasn't even for anybody that BAFTA nominated. Okay,
Yeah, so,
that
like,
is
you
true.
could.
That is true. They can go nuts for a movie that the Oscars
After
don't care
Sun
about.
didn't get any nomination. Or no, sorry, it did. But that was
Last
that was
year, every
weird.
movie out of the long-listed 10 got a nomination. Post-BAFTA update, I was like ready to predict Andrew Scott. Now, if I want to still argue with it for him, I could say that he probably missed because of the jury. It feels weird to predict him without it. Thinking about it a little more, Andrew Scott, I think when you compare him to like the Antonio Banderas or the Marion Cotillard or Jonathan Pryce nominations, maybe he's just not like quite seasoned enough for the Academy to put in there. You can call him a Paul Mescal for After Sun, but I still would maintain that that was mostly due to a lack of competition. And also, look, Coleman Domingo, he may have been a jury save as well. And the argument still stands that like every year there's somebody who gets like 3 of the major precursors or 4 and gets snubbed. I mean, look at what happened to Viola Davis last year for The Woman King. She got everything. And this especially happens if your movie's not in Best Picture. But Coleman Domingo, I mean, he's been having a good year. Like, I think he makes the most sense to predict. And I know it's 5 out of 5 SAG, but this happens to be the category where SAG's gone 5 out of 5 the most in like the past decade. I mean, you can't be confident in this category with non-Best Picture nominees. You just can't. I think it's super close. Like, I think DiCaprio missing SAG and BAFTA makes him hard to predict, especially just because he is like Leonardo DiCaprio. It's funny to say that he's below the people who aren't in Best Picture nominees, but it just feels like at this point there's not quite enough excitement that he's able to drum up. And I don't think he's necessarily trying, as people have pointed out. I can list Zac Efron and Barry Keoghan as like maybes, but that's not going to happen.
Fuck it, no.
I'm not even going to bother talking about them.
I get why DiCaprio's not getting nominated, even though I thought he was like really good in the movie.
If you told me that at Cannes, I would have been like, you aren't from the future. You're just not. Best Actress, I put Emma Stone back at number 1.
Yeah.
Because her winning Critics' Choice and also Golden Globe. I just don't know for sure that like Lily Gladstone's going to win with that kind of performance, even though as subtle as it is. As narrativeless as people say Emma Stone is, and as narrative-full as Lily Gladstone is, we've seen that not work out. Yeah. We've seen it go both ways. We've seen narratives work. We've seen narratives fail. So that alone is not a factor. But you know what is a good factor? How big a performance is.
They're both really close to Best Picture. I do think there's more passion for Poor Things than Killers.
I'm unsure about that.
Not with critics. With critics, they love Killers. But with like the average person, I think people are like, Poor Things! Lily Gladstone is like, everyone knows she's sweeping critics. But what some people might be a little bit surprised to learn is that Emma Stone's not far behind. It's expected that Lily Gladstone is going to take critics awards because she has been a critic darling for a while now. Like the critics have seen her movies. This is a first movie for a lot of people.
That's also something that like Twitter doesn't recognize, is that this is most people's first Lily Gladstone movie.
Yeah.
Most people haven't seen Certain Women, guys. And maybe people are underestimating that factor.
When you look at something sweeping critics groups and then not translating into the Oscar, which happens like all the time, it kind of smells like that could be what's happening here, especially because Emma Stone's nipping at her heels even at critics groups. Her performance is is closer to like the Oscar bait thing that they go for. Lily Gladstone is not in the movie as much. This feels like more what makes sense to me, but I definitely don't rule out like Lily Gladstone winning. I mean, look, if Lily Gladstone takes the SAG and Emma Stone takes the BAFTA,
that's what might
similar
happen.
Situation with Best Actor, and like they would also make it a really hard to predict category.
Carey Mulligan, there's no reason to think that she isn't in. Sandra Hüller is definitely in. The SAG snub was inevitable, but it's fine. She's going to coast right through it.
I'm glad that I feel confident she's in, but I'm a little bit scared. I'm just glad that she seems like she's in there.
She is.
Bravo. That's a fucking amazing performance.
Number 5. Some people think not having Margot Robbie is insane because she has all the nominations right now. Okay, she misses BAFTA. You know, that may be not here nor there. If we look at where Margot Robbie got in, I still think Oscar is going to be the biggest challenge. Because why wouldn't it be? You have Golden Globe, where comedy, obviously. You have SAG, who is going to throw a party for that movie and not nominate Sandra Hüller. Like, of course they were going to do that. And Critics' Choice has 6 slots. So this is her biggest challenge. I won't hear it any other way. I might put her in, though, because she's been doing better with critics groups than I expected. And maybe it makes sense because she's Barbie in the Barbie movie, and the Barbie movie is a major, major Oscar player. The only person I would consider swapping her out for is Greta Lee in Past Lives, who missed SAG. That movie didn't get any SAG nominations. At the same time, she might end up having Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, and BAFTA, all places that have 6 slots. Which is the problem. Maybe the problem is that Greta Lee just is so number 6 or whatever.
It doesn't feel like you must nominate Margot Robbie for playing Barbie in the Barbie movie. I've always had a feeling that wasn't going to go all the way to the Oscar, but it was always obvious it was going to get SAG. Now, Greta Lee, for Past Lives, she sure is campaigning, okay? And Past Lives showing up with a meager 2 nominations doesn't really match like the amount of passion that I feel like overall that movie has.
I kind of agree with that too. That doesn't feel like good enough. Post BAFTA update. Did this force our hand on Margot Robbie that Greta Lee didn't make BAFTA and Margot Robbie did?
The fact that Margot Robbie got in here, like, I'm surprised.
I mean,
Barbie doesn't even do that well overall, and this is a category where I can't figure out like whether that was jury or not. And if it's jury, that feels like it doesn't make sense. And if it's not jury, that also feels like it doesn't make sense.
For her to have everything and be in a bigger Best Picture contender than Past Lives, and then Greta Lee not having BAFTA and SAG, I mean, it doesn't quite work out to predict Greta Lee at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can have hope for it, but it's the kind of thing where I don't want to hope predict it.
Unless you want to say if Annette Bening's getting in, which I just think, if she gets BAFTA, like, we'll fucking talk. But I don't know. I just don't see it. I think Jodie Foster's stronger. The Best Picture girls are strong this year. Fantasia Barrina's kind of done.
Yeah,
Natalie Portman's pretty done. And Ingenue Ellis, maybe that last minute, whatever thing is working.
It's funny
I
how
just don't
Natalie
think
Portman
so.
is done because I've always been feeling like she was maybe gonna make it into the Oscar at the last second, but I really don't think so.
Supporting actress, fucking kill me. Literally don't know what to do. Literally don't know what to do.
This is a hilariously enjoyable category for me. I have been in denial about Jodie Foster and Nyad, and I just simply have overlooked the fact that she's done really well. And I'm gonna have a hard time putting her in the 5.
I'm keeling over.
What do
on
I do
Jodie
with that?
Foster.
You're gonna keel over?
I'm keeling over. I am a submissive dog on it, with my belly up, ready for pets. I'll explain why after I really quickly just get out of the way that Davine Joy Randolph's winning, Emily Blunt's getting nominated, and Danielle Brooks, with the very slight possibility of being snubbed, because her film's not in Best Picture,
still get in.
I still think she's gonna get in. So now on to Jodie Foster. Golden Globe SAG doing decently with critics, more so than Annette Bening. Is Jodie Foster? That's an argument in her favor. She didn't get nominated for The Mauritanian.
Yeah, she did.
Like, there's that, but it's not like, oh, well, now that happened, that's gonna happen every time. That's not really how this works. The fact that Naya got 2 SAG nominations, and not just 1. Not just lone Jodie Foster. Not just little lone Jodie Foster. This is where she's different from Eddie Redmayne in The Good Nurse or Ben Affleck in The Tender Bar. It's not just her at SAG. It's her and Annette Bening. I can point to 2 instances that I know in my head where this happened, where 2 actors got nominated from SAG, and then none of them got nominated at the Oscars, and it was House of Gucci and it was The Butler. And, not a coincidence that both those movies were missing Best Picture. But something about Nyad and, like, the fact that these actors, that Jodie Foster is such a giant. I just think she's safer. And I actually don't, I wouldn't be shocked if she got snubbed. Her and Penelope Cruz, I think, are both super maybe. Ultra maybe. But I also have a very strong feeling that SAG will not go 5 out of 5 here. It just doesn't feel like a 5 out of 5 category. But it's also tempting because I don't have a great feeling about other people. Penelope Cruz, here we go. All right. I'm not predicting Penelope Cruz. I know that people want to yell at me, and I'm going to yell at me for you. But she's Penelope Cruz. The Academy loves her. You said she had no shot for Parallel Mothers because she didn't get any nominations or the BAFTA long list, and she prevailed and got it anyway. So she can do anything, and she has a SAG nomination, and so she's getting in for Ferrari. I watched the first half of Ferrari. It's obviously an Oscar bait performance, and it's very good. And she's a great actress, and it makes sense. Like, it makes sense performance-wise.
I watched the first half of Ferrari.
And I fell asleep, and I haven't gotten back to it, all right? But she makes a lot of sense. My thing is just that, despite her being Penelope Cruz, I think that she's Eddie Redmayne in The Good Nurse. I think that she's Ben Affleck, The Tender Bar. Like, I just think she's these things. And I know it's different because she's Penelope Cruz, and I'll acknowledge that it's different. But for her to be the very lone nomination for that movie anywhere...
There's a difference between Ben Affleck in The Tender Bar and Eddie Redmayne in The Good Nurse. Like, those were not really supposed to be things. Like, this was manufactured to get her an Oscar nomination. Like, everything she's doing in it, like the way she walks and the way she has, like, a grumpy face on, and she's like, I am very serious all the time. I am, I might shoot you. You don't know what I'm going to do next. It really does feel like pointed directly, like, laser sight onto the Oscar trophy.
But I must point out that she's wobbly simply because it's not a Best Picture movie. And you can say the same
but
about
Ferrari's
Nyad.
been contending in general. Like, it's been getting shortlists,
And
it's been
yet-
popping up.
Well, okay, her getting SAG's good, but she did not get the BAFTA shortlist. I know she didn't get it for Parallel Mothers. I know that. I know it. But that movie got like
So defensive.
that movie got a few long lists at BAFTA, makeup and production design. Like, and people who are saying, oh, she's Penelope Cruz. It's like, well, she's Jodie Foster, and Jodie Foster has 2 Oscars and not 1.
So put them both in, why don't you?
I know. No, that's honestly tempting just because
She's
I
Jodie
think
Foster, she's Penelope Cruz.
it's because I know that they're both wobbly. I know that there's both wobbly, and there's no way SAG goes 5 out of 5 in this category. Like, there's just no way. Okay, there's a way, but there's also no way. A very possible thing that makes sense that people are trying to do is say, well, Sandra Hüller, as long as she gets BAFTA, supporting actress for Zone of Interest, that could happen at the Oscars.
And she probably will get BAFTA.
And she probably will get BAFTA. And if she doesn't, then she's not going to be on this
This
video.
is like a really interesting but great nomination, I think, if it happens.
It's very interesting. And
it's
I
very
actually,
unconventional.
I wasn't
Very
so on board with
unconventional.
it the first time I watched the movie, but watching it again and again, I'd be fine with it. And I'd be like, that's pretty cool.
I was really impressed because I hadn't heard anything about her performance. And when I watched the movie, I was like, she's really good. She's like ice fucking cold. She completely like melds into the film.
I also think that her being in Anatomy of a Fall and everyone seeing that performance, like, you can see the range.
Oh, yeah.
For her to be a double nominee.
It's her year,
for
too.
her to pull
It's a
Scarlett
huge year
Johansson.
for her. Yeah, I know.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
But it does feel like Sandra Hüller kind of has that year. Like, she
she's
has
got a
something
year.
going for her.
2
that-
nominations, though. I mean, it's
being the lead in 2 Best Picture movies.
It also just feels, and it's like I was saying before about like the Oscars plopping in an extra nominee from a Best Picture movie. And, you know, taking out either Jodie Foster or Penelope Cruz can be justified because I think they're both wobbly in their own little fun ways.
I think the logical, like, on paper thing to do would be pick one to keep and then throw away one for something in a Best Picture nominee, and that's what you're doing.
And also, I want to point this out, that supporting actress rarely goes 2 out of 5 with Best Picture nominees. Very rarely does this happen. And it only happened once in the last decade, and it was during the Spotlight year when Rachel McAdams got nominated, and she was literally the only option. If you really want to say it, America Ferrera is the other option for Best
I was
Picture
going to
film.
say, she's the other option.
Yeah. Some people think that makes sense that she happens. To me, the SAG snub was RIP.
Yeah, some people are like, you're going to give it to her because she did a monologue? Like, is that really it? They don't really see.
I mean, the monologue is big. Like, it was clipped a
I'm
lot.
not like, I don't have like strong feelings about her getting it. I don't hate if she gets in. I think I really liked her performance in the movie. I don't like need it to happen. And I'm just shocked that SAG didn't do it. Like, that's my main thing. I was
can't
convinced that SAG was
justify
going to do it, and then I was going to predict her for the Oscar, and then SAG didn't do it, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm not even going to predict her for the Oscar.
I don't know how to justify it without SAG. Also, Penelope Cruz and Ferrari, I also think, like, she got a surprise nomination for Parallel Mothers. I don't think this means that she's going to do that every time she's up for an Oscar. That she's going to get it every time.
Every
year is different. And here's an example. Oh, the Oscars love Ruth Negga. She's surprised for Loving. Didn't get nominated for Passing, where she got nominated like everywhere else. Like, inconsistencies happen. Oh, they love Amy Adams. She didn't get in for Arrival.
Yeah.
Sandra Hüller just kind of adds up as like a Leslie Manville thing to me. I'm just always going to feel like it's possible. And she's not Nina Hossing it from Tar. Like, that's Nina Hoss was less than that.
Julianne Moore at this point, I'm going to say no because May December didn't get any SAG nominations.
Unfortunately.
Jesus.
I mean, well,
it didn't get, she
honestly,
she got shortlisted as
she's
BAFTA,
the only one who's shortlisted BAFTA, and if she gets in, it'd be like, hey, like maybe the Oscars like May December slightly more than
I always thought May December was going to get an Oscar nomination like somewhere, and in an acting category. You know, for a while, like she was getting nominations, and then something happened.
She dropped off a steep cliff. She's ridiculously good. Like,
I know.
She should. Oh my god, if she gets in, I'm gonna be so happy.
I really
so
would
happy.
like her to get in here, but
And then Rosamund Pike. I mean, she might have Golden Globe and BAFTA.
that's another one that
but
I
it's also. It's weird that she
want
doesn't
to
have Critics'
do.
Choice because I got Best Picture at Critics' Choice. I think she could sneak in. Like, I'm almost a little enticed by it.
I know.
A little enticed by her.
I think I'd be more enticed though if like the other options didn't seem better.
I also think Rosamund Pike would be stronger if there was a lead performance going along with the movie or something else. The movie's hanging on by so little that I can't quite do it. Claire Foy could coattail Andrew Scott. I could honestly see it like in a weird way, and she would make sense. Like she's really good in it.
Yeah,
and she has a couple great scenes. Rachel McAdams is pretty dead. Unfortunately, she hasn't gotten anything, even though she's so good in it.
So even though I told everyone that I have Jodie Foster and Naiad bias, I might just do it because I feel like it's Kathy Bates and Richard Jewell. But
Well,
even stronger.
even
like,
stronger
That
than
was
that, yeah.
was like not expected. I just feel like that name's gonna pop up. I just feel like it's gonna happen.
I just want to throw this out too. Getting just SAG and nothing else is not good.
Is Jodie Foster
in general,
shortlisted
it's
for
not
BAFTA?
good. Yes. Supporting actor RDJ's winning. Not having the debate anymore.
Not a question.
Ryan Gosling, Robert De Niro, not missing anywhere. Be insane if he got snubbed at this point. And then what SAG did, they threw us for a loop. And we're kind of back where we were at some point a couple months ago, aren't we? What happened with the Poor Things boys at SAG, it doesn't feel similar to anything. One of them's kind of trailing, but one of them's riding much higher, and then it happens like
It
that.
happened at the Oscars with Belfast.
It can happen at the Oscars, but the leapfrog doesn't usually happen at SAG. I've never seen that
Yeah.
before. I've
Yeah.
never seen something like that. And but the fact
I
that
couldn't
Willem
believe what I
Dafoe
saw.
got SAG and Mark Ruffalo didn't, I mean, that shows strength for Dafoe.
Yep.
That's the lesson that I learned.
Yep.
Mark Ruffalo, while it does seem that these boys are having a little bit of trouble, competing with each other, obviously, because they didn't both get in. I feel like Mark Ruffalo just makes sense as a thing that SAG just blanks on. But he slipped on a banana peel in Mario Kart, but he's still fine.
I think he's gonna be fine. I think it's a weird fluke. I almost feel like I will do this because it feels like the safest thing to do.
This being predicting both of them.
Yeah, predicting both of them.
It definitely is the
Because
safest
then
thing
I'm
to
like,
do.
I cover all my bases, right? Like if they do the same thing, at least I get one.
You'll get 4 out of 5 most likely. It'd be insane if none of the Poor Things boys got nominated.
Yeah, it really would be insane if De Niro wasn't nominated.
The past 4 fucking years in supporting actor, there have been 2 nominees in the same movie. Even with surprises like Judas and the Black Messiah, like they are just squeezing that in lately. And it always felt like these two could squeeze in the Oscars together. Now, Melton, oh my fucking god, am I pissed.
He did feel like the thing that maybe would carry over from May, December, if nothing else.
Yep.
But you miss SAG and you miss BAFTA long list. And where does that leave you? And May, December underperforming in general.
I do think, like, when I close my eyes, I can see his name popping up and, like, just coming along.
Yeah,
but I can
being
also,
like,
I also know that Willem Dafoe is going to show up. Like,
I know that Willem
You know,
Dafoe is going to show up.
I think this 5 like might actually happen. And the weird thing about it is that it felt easy at one point, and because it hasn't been easy, it's almost like, oh, now it makes like more sense to predict because it doesn't feel too easy.
Just without Charles Melton, like that's the only guy that I'm going to be rooting for.
But I can see it because he stands out so much. I mean, if they've watched the movie, how do you not?
Film
And look,
Twitter had like a month-long extravaganza for him. They threw him a celebration.
Look, maybe this is the problem that some people pointed this out early on. Even when you compare him to like a Brian Tyree Henry, that guy has given memorable performances in stuff like Atlanta, and people kind of knew him for a while. Charles Melton, this is really his first serious rodeo. If he lone nominees himself from May, December off of this performance, it's just because it's so fucking good. And it is that good where, like, I do think there's a chance.
Yeah.
I do think he could squeeze in.
Yeah.
And it's always been a feeling of mine.
I have hope
that he will squeeze his way somehow, snake his way into the category. But I also think I might just be disappointed. You know, Kristen Stewart, though, she got snubbed from BAFTA, not long list, but BAFTA and SAG, and the Oscars pulled through, and people thought it was impossible.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that you want to calculate observed passion, like, there's a really good case for him still.
And Netflix has
There's
been
still a good case
campaigning
for
like
him.
billboards and shit. Man,
It's just a really fucking crowded
the top
category.
five's really strong, and every single actor in there has previous nominations and lots of industry respect. So what are you gonna do about that? Like, that's tough.
Like, it'd be nice if I knew which Poor Thing boy I could snub, but I don't know.
And I think there's a great chance both get in, especially with the Oscars in this category. And look, remember Jesse Plemons' Power of the Dog too. Like, they go out of their way to do that sometimes. Sterling K. Brown is SAG and Critics' Choice. So why are we? That's actually a really good combo, by the way. So why are we dismissing him? Why are we not even talking about him?
I mean, American Fiction had a great turnout at SAG.
yeah,
He could easily happen. I just don't know who to take out. Can I just say I don't know who the hell to take out?
Yeah.
He took out Mark Ruffalo. He is a threat.
he also didn't make BAFTA long list. Dominic Sessa. You know, even if he gets that lone BAFTA nominee, not gonna happen. People are too content being like, oh, that's a debut performance, we're not touching that. Original screenplay, I'm gonna, like, maybe have a little Globes bias and say Anatomy of a Fall #1 because I also think
Really?
it could win the BAFTA. Because again, what are you going to say? You're going to say Past Lives is going to win or The Holdovers
For BAFTA?
when they didn't win any awards. When they didn't win any
what if
major
Anatomy
awards.
doesn't win BAFTA?
Barbie might win BAFTA. Then you, wait, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Maybe Past
Barbie would
Lives.
probably win BAFTA. No.
I don't know. And 4 and 5 for screenplay. Maestro seems somewhat likely because it's in Best Picture. And that's it for Best Picture nominees in this category. You have 2 slots. So for it to not fill either and be replaced by, non-Best Picture nominees, it'd be kind of weird. At the same time, I could see Maestro squeezing into Best Picture, but underperforming, maybe missing screenplay.
Well, I don't know if you can take it out for Air. I mean, because May, December, I think you got to have that in there. I think that's like the one nomination it gets.
Okay,
if
well,
it didn't
hold
get that,
up.
that'd be crazy.
Listen, I think that this could go any way with the 3 movies here, and I do think Air is in contention for a lone nomination here. I think there is a possibility that they snub Maestro for Air in May, December. I think there's a possibility they hate May, December so much that they don't even nominate it for screenplay. And I think there's a possibility that, Air just doesn't get in, which would probably be like the most believable outcome. In general, with Maestro, though, I'm curious to see how it does at the BAFTAs. I'm really curious. Yes, it got a lot of long lists, but, if the movie was getting snubbed from categories, if it just blanked in costumes, production design, and sound, and even cinematography, or if it didn't get screenplay, like, all these things could make me think that it'll get less nominations than we expect at the Oscars. But right now, I feel like it's safe to say Maestro is a Best Picture nominee. And May, December, this can be a lone nomination.
You're not even considering Saltburn and Ironclaw, are you?
No.
I'm more inclined to think Air gets 0 nominations than that May, December gets 0 nominations.
Since Cannes, I always thought it would be more likely for this movie to get into acting categories than into screenplay. But there's been a lot of hype with the screenplay, and critics were really going out for it. New York Film Critics gave it the award, and Sammy Birch was kind of getting out there. So I think there's something to it. Adapted screenplay. This is going to be very short. There's no room for anything else to happen. This is Barbie, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Killers, and American Fiction. When Barbie moved to this category, it tightened up and you couldn't fit anything into it. It's the densest metal there is. There's no room for anything to pass through.
The densest metal in physics. Even Zone of Interest, which was on track to get an adapted screenplay nomination, can no longer fit in unless it took out something major. Barbie, American Fiction, I think they're competing for the win.
It's just so funny to me. Oppenheimer is number 4, but it's so not. In the sense of what number 4 means.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer is not Killers of the Flower Moon is not number 5 in the sense of what that means. That is a number 3 at worst, and yet
It's number 5.
this top 5 is a top 3. It's just
Category.
going to happen. It's just going to be 5 out of 5, and I've never been more sure about a 5 out of 5 category in my whole life. We can keep going. Cinematography. Oh god. I need BAFTA to help me with this actually. It's gonna affect what I think. ASC does Oppenheimer, Killers, Poor Things, Maestro, El Conde,
which was a shock too. That
El Conde was a
got
shock.
nominated.
We thought
We had that in our
predictions.
predictions way early in the year.
Yeah, and here it comes. They pull a Bardo on it, and I didn't think it'd be Bardo because that was in Inarritu and everything. But this is Edward Lockman. He got nominated for Carol. He's kind of a big cinematographer, so there's that. It's black and white. And listen, you can dismiss El Conde if you want to. You can say, well, look, the Oscars have to squeeze Zone of Interest in there, and I'd say I kind of agree that they have to do that. And at the same time, El Conde, ASC doing something like that, and the Oscars not following up on it would be that would never happen. That's why with Bardo last year, I was listen, guys, Bardo's getting nominated because it got the ASC.
So Zone of Interest, I mean, it's not like they couldn't have nominated it. It's not like they don't know who Lucas
I know,
is.
and
In fact,
especially
they've given him an award.
the British
so it's
Society.
weird that they didn't nominate him. It shows a little bit of weakness for Zone of Interest.
It does.
In cinematography.
I'm concerned. Now, what I would like to see from BAFTA, what would make it neat, is if BAFTA snubbed Maestro. And I could say, I actually can feel justified putting Zone of Interest in and El Conde and snubbing Maestro.
I don't want Maestro to be snubbed for cinematography.
I agree
That's,
that it's
really
weird, but what
weird.
if it's Belfast?
Maestro, you're comparing Maestro's cinematography to Belfast?
Poor Things would be a wacko snub. My god, that'd be weird. So I don't know. I just don't know what to do.
I don't know if you can snub Maestro. That seems a little too strange.
Can I
to
snub
me.
Zone of Interest? Look, if the BAFTA doesn't nominate Zone of Interest, I'm just going to go with the ASC 5.
It's not like the cinematography in Zone of Interest is showy.
Well,
It's
sometimes
not,
it is.
El Conde is trying to be black and white expressionistic.
What about
it seems
the infrared stuff? Like,
that's not really showy, is it? Would you call it showy?
I would call it.
It's just a
striking
strong choice.
There's a lot of strong choices in Zone of Interest.
I do feel like it's going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like it is going to happen too. But if BAFTA didn't do it, I would go with the ASC 5. If BAFTA does do Zone and they do this top 5 right here that I have on my screen, I am just simply in panic mode and I don't know what to do.
I wish Saltburn could squeeze in here too, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
Something about Zone of Interest and El Conde both getting in also just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know what to do.
I think this is fine.
Really?
Yeah.
But El Conde not getting in, that would never happen.
Well, it might happen.
Editing, Oppenheimer's winning, Killers is getting nominated. I think Barbie is going to get nominated. I just think that's kind of safe and happening. Poor Things is very likely to happen. That's been getting editing. And the 5th slot, I think The Holdovers is a pretty good shot. Just being a top 5 movie. Sometimes
Now, what about after Anatomy of a Fall gets editing at the BAFTA?
I would be a little tempted if they got editing at BAFTA. I would be tempted.
Maestro is doing decently in editing, I think.
It kind of is, but I don't think it. I think that, like we said, maybe it's Mank and it misses.
Yeah, Holdovers does seem like a top movie, so I think this is a good 5. American Fiction, hasn't been doing quite as well as we thought maybe it could be doing.
It could surprise. I think The Holdovers kind of fits for, that comedy that gets in. So, I'm pretty comfortable with this 5. Post-BAFTA change that we might make, I feel kind of strongly that Anatomy of a Fall is going to show up. That was a really strong BAFTA showing for it to get Best Film and everything. What gets snubbed to me is either Barbie or Poor Things. Poor Things I'm a little scared of because even though it doesn't make sense that it would get snubbed for Best Editing, it doesn't. I feel like it does make sense. No. It's not showy, right? It's the editing? Yeah. I didn't think the editing was very showy in Poor Things. Okay. It kind of feels like something that might just slide under. Here's the thing, though. It hasn't been so far. It has, Critics' Choice and BAFTA. But so did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I mean, Barbie kind of makes sense for an editing snub at this point because the BAFTAs didn't nominate it and they were pretty underwhelmed in, several of the extra... I don't know tech categories, but I think the Oscars will embrace Barbie pretty warmly overall. Yeah, I think it'll do definitely better at Oscars than at BAFTA. I mean, I can think of more montage-y moments in Barbie than Poor Things. It's just a weird feeling, but I do want to put Anatomy of a Fall in. I just do. I guess Zone of Interest is possible for editing, but it still feels a little bit of a long shot to me. I mean, look, there's a world where it gets in and I'm like, holy shit, they loved it. Wow. Production design, Barbie, Poor Things, and Barbie's winning. Oppenheimer, Killers, and then this is where you can, do what you want. So Asteroid City is definitely number 5 with critics. It's what the Critics' Choice nominated.
And maybe they could just do it this year, even though French Dispatch didn't happen. I mean, you're kind of predicting off the fact that French Dispatch bombed.
It's also very rare to get a lone production design nomination. Yeah. Hail Caesar did it, but I think that's the last one to do it. Just being a non-contender overall, I don't know. I mean, look, I feel like the Zone of Interest makes so much sense that I don't understand why it hasn't happened yet, or why nobody has started to do it. We'll see if BAFTA does it, but people aren't even there are people who don't even think it's top 10. They just don't even think about it. But how do you not even think about it? How does it not even cross your mind? I even would consider just because I feel like I can make such a strong case against everything else, I would even consider saying that no matter what happens at BAFTA, no matter if Zone of Interest is nominated or not, I still predict Zone of Interest and just go with it. It's shaping up where they're going to land hard with the movie, I think.
Maybe, but this isn't a mandatory category.
Maybe the problem is that there's just only so many limited locations. It'd be kind of like The Father or Parasite or something.
Yeah, but they like doing that. They don't care.
They do. I mean, look, if BAFTA nominates this, I'm set. I'm sold. I'm sold on what the 5 is.
But if it doesn't nominate this, then let's say you decide, okay, it's not going to happen. Do you go with Asteroid City?
I would be between Asteroid City and Napoleon. If Asteroid City got BAFTA too, I'd be a little tempted. And some people are predicting it, but I think I just can't. I don't really see Maestro happening. I just think that's too many nominations for Maestro.
And it's weird that Color Purple hasn't been showing up in production design, but because it's not showing up where it needs to, it didn't get an Art Directors Guild nomination, super weird. I don't think we can predict that.
Yeah. Costume design, Barbie winning, Poor Things getting nominated, Killers easily getting nominated. That's the top 3. And then there's 4 options I'm really considering overall. Napoleon has gotten costumes everywhere so far. BAFTA will probably follow up. If they don't, then we might see it slip from my predictions. I don't know how much I would care or not, but I feel like Napoleon's going to end up with a nomination everywhere. Now, you could say, well, is it vulnerable to Best Picture nominees because they're Best Picture nominees? In the costume category, I don't know if that's true. Costumes is very rarely 5 for 5 in Best Picture. In the expanded era, they've done it one time. It was in 2019. And I guess similar to 2019, we may get like 3 or 4 movies that have 10 plus nominations, which was the case for, you know, Almost Found Hollywood, Irishman 1917, and Joker. Which is similar to this year because we have like 4 movies that are gunning for like, you know, a lot of fucking nominations. So maybe that does happen this year, which would be Maestro Oppenheimer scenario.
Post-BAFTA update, Napoleon now has it in everywhere, so I want to say that that's in. And then it's between Oppenheimer and Maestro, and look, it's very easy to look at BAFTA and say, well, Oppenheimer got in and predict BAFTA. And I think I might have to do that because even though Oppenheimer's costume designer hasn't been nominated before, and Maestro's is Mark Bridges, Oppenheimer may just be an instance where every single crafts brand wants to get in on the Oppenheimer love. They want a piece of the pie. When has Oppenheimer missed a major nomination in any, or even a minor nomination, like anywhere?
Just a short list for visual effects. And
just visual effects, like everywhere else, like every crafts branch has just been dipping their toes in. I mean, I'm still like a little more tempted by Maestro here than other people seem to be, but I think this is just the safe 5 to go with.
Wonka missed this at the Costume Guild, so that's a red flag to me. Color Purple also missed the Costume Guild, and Priscilla and Chevalier don't really seem to have a shot either. For makeup, you got Maestro, Poor Things. Is Maestro winning? Definitely.
Probably, yeah. It'd be crazy if it didn't win.
Yeah, they're still gonna do it. Critics' Choice tried to do something else, but like the Oscars aren't gonna do that.
They can't even do Barbie.
Golda's getting in. Golda got the big nomination from the Makeup Guild, and I was like, well, yeah, that makes it a lock in my opinion. That makes Golda like super in there. Oppenheimer did well with the Makeup Guild as well, and hasn't really been missing. And I think there's enough work there, so I'm putting Oppenheimer in. And number 5, Society of the Snow. I watched the movie. I thought if this doesn't get in, that'd be fucking insane. It'd be insane. It's like All Quiet level stuff that they're doing here.
And this, I think, is the only this is the nomination that Society of the Snow is most likely to get.
Yeah, I think. And guess what? Society of the Snow is a major hit for Netflix. A major hit and an audience smash, and they really like it. It's 7.9 IMDb, great audience scores, and All Quiet level performance on Netflix. Better than Maestro, better than May December. So I actually think this last minute surge for Society of the Snow, while you know it's not getting into Best Picture, is going to play out in 1 or 2 tech categories, this being the most likely. Somehow sound didn't happen.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand.
I was really surprised.
After watching the movie, I really don't understand how sound didn't make the short list. I'm comfortable with the 5. Like, I think Beau is Afraid, while he has old man makeup in some of the movie, I think it's too out there. Last Voyage of the Demeter, they're a little biased towards horror movies, and I'm not really sure the vampire thing is, like, enough. And then Napoleon Killers and Ferrari just don't have as much makeup as the others, and this is a little bit the most makeup category. In score, I'm going to try to go with the 5 that everybody thinks. Oppenheimer's winning, Killers getting nominated, Poor Things is getting nominated, Spider-Verse has been doing very well. And it's been hitting all the beats. BAFTA will probably go for it, honestly. Pemberton's British, by the way, and they nominated him for Ricardo's. I mean, that movie, the campaign that they've been doing with the live orchestra and everything, that stuff helps.
Yeah, I mean, getting into the visual effects shortlist too, the movie is strong outside of Best Picture. I mean, I think it's going to get into score. It definitely looks like it's going to not just get animated feature. Zone of Interest has really surprised me. I did not think that this would be taking off for score like it is. Making the shortlist here was a big deal. Getting the Golden Globe nomination and the BAFTAs probably gonna do it.
The BAFTAs, it was not eligible for the long list.
Oh,
which is better than just not making it for no reason. I mean, it probably would have been on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's unconventional, so I don't consider it like a total lock, but
it stands out a lot.
It stands out.
This is an amazing lineup if they.
And that's why you should be scared, because you're making the lineup that you want the best, aren't you?
Listen, Indiana Jones, if it gets BAFTA, oh my god, am I scared. If it gets BAFTA over Spider-Verse, I might actually be scared enough to swap that. But as long as that doesn't happen, I think we'll be okay. But if it did get BAFTA, I think it would probably end up with the Oscar. And I'd be like, fuck. Boy and the Heron, I don't think is actually happening. I think that was an early thing that people wanted to happen, and it didn't take off quite enough. Society of the Snow, again, the last minute surge, like that's maybe something that's possible. I thought the score was very good, but I didn't think it was like the Batman level, like holy shit to me. So I don't know if I see it as like mandatory, but
yeah, getting in
a big possibility. Elemental, like that movie is maybe not even getting nominated for animated feature. as much as we can argue that Thomas Newman is an Oscars favorite,
Yeah, can't rule it out.
I just think the movie would have to be stronger in animated feature. It'd have to be, I don't even think it's top 3 anymore. I think it's like 5 or 6. So Barbie might get a BAFTA nomination, so I would put that a little higher. I think Barbie could surprise. American Fiction, I also think, is a slight possibility for a surprise. Everything else, I wouldn't really consider that heavily. The top 5's easy to me unless BAFTA nominates Indiana Jones.
And here it is at number 6, just perched and waiting to swoop down.
For sound, we have Oppenheimer winning. I think The Zone of Interest is totally getting in, and I don't care that it didn't make one of the big guilds, because the guilds don't, like, I don't know. They haven't been going for Zone of Interest that hard, except for PGA, LOL. Don't know how that ended up happening. But anyway, I think BAFTA will nominate this, and when they do, I'll feel fine about it. If they somehow snubbed it, I'd be like, just stunned and on the floor.
It stands out too much and it's too different and detailed. Like, I just don't think they would snub it.
This is a bake-off category now, by the way. Ferrari's getting nominated. Ferrari got both nominations from the sound editing and mixing guilds, and that puts it in, because it's actually one of 2 movies that got both nominations, both the big sound effects nominations from those guilds. That and Oppenheimer were the only ones. Maestro got the mixing guild nomination. Napoleon got the editing guild, I believe. The Killer got the editing guild, and Killers got the mixing guild. All right, I think I got that right. But, there's also awards for, like, best dialogue or whatever. And, Killers of the Flower Moon was doing very well with those. And Maestro appeared in other nominations at the one that it didn't get. To me, I think The Killer has a shot. Apparently, they showcased the fight scene in the apartment. And, I mean, look.
It's on YouTube.
The Bake Off could help a movie like that, for sure.
Yeah.
But I have a little
I've always
bit of a
thought,
fear
like,
of it
The
getting...
Killer had a good chance in sound. But
I have a fear of it getting
very
blanked a little bit, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's very competitive, though. But, like, for a Fincher movie, like, the sound is always very detailed. They might really like that.
I think Killers of the Flower Moon is always one that I've just been not, like, 100% sold on. I mean, it's been present at these sound guilds, and I'm curious to see what BAFTA does in this category, if they'll nominate it or not. That's, like, on the cusp for me.
Yeah, this is a category, though, that I could see, like, shifting around a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a locked 5 at all.
I think that's why I think Ferrari's 3, because I just think that's getting, like, even Maestro... Like,
I could see it missing.
I could see it missing, and if it doesn't get BAFTA, I will predict it to miss. Something about it, like, I get that there's a lot of loud, booming Bernstein music in it, but I also kind of have struggled to understand throughout the whole year why that's, like, really impressive sound work, when isn't that just kind of the score doing the work?
No, I listened to them trying to highlight their sound for, like, some Academy conference or whatever. And they highlight a lot of sound that's ordinary. Ordinary sound in the movie, like things you see on screen, dialogue, cleaning up dialogue.
If Maestro gets BAFTA, I don't think I can justify not predicting it,
I guess, yeah, because they are also, like, branched.
I'm curious about Napoleon. Definitely curious about that one. Might do that. Might do that.
I think it's absolutely justified from, like, what's in the movie.
And they nominated, like, Greyhound for sound. That was its lone nomination. That, like, I don't know, Deepwater Horizon got a sound nomination.
It's like that.
Yeah.
It's probably like that.
So I feel like I can put that in. I mean, that did miss the sound mixing guild.
It feels right to predict Napoleon for 2 nominations, by the way. Costumes, sound.
Post-BAFTA update, it looks like Napoleon didn't make BAFTA despite doing pretty well in techs at BAFTA, and that makes me a little skeptical. Napoleon also missed Cinema Audio Society, and so those 2 combined, I kind of have to say that even though Napoleon makes a lot of sense for sound, I might have to squeeze Killers in. I know Killers didn't get BAFTA either, but Cinema Audio Society and having some kind of presence of the other one, I think it may be enough.
What about The Killer?
I just think they're going to blank on it. I think it's a goose egg.
I'm not considering Barbie. I think that if you think Barbie's getting in, yes, Barbie did get some nominations from, like, the guilds and stuff, but that's very everything everywhere to me. I think it's a little too goofy, and I don't think they're going to take it seriously. For visual effects, I've been wrestling with this category for a long time, and I've been doing a lot of research for it. But now that the VES have come out, I'm a little more confident, because it actually affirms something I already had. We have The Creator and Guardians getting in. I can't promise anybody a winner right now. I just don't know. Like, that's a whole other conversation that I'm confused about. But we know those 2 are getting in.
Wait, you don't have Godzilla in this list?
No.
What?
Listen.
You took it out?
Hey.
Oh,
we'll
shit.
get there.
Oh, shit.
Indiana Jones is getting nominated.
Yeah,
I looked
I
at this and I was like, okay, first of all, they fucking are obsessed with nominating Disney shit here. And they nominated The Lone Ranger and nobody liked it. But I actually watched a video. Like, The Lone Ranger had some really, really impressive visual effects. So, like, people can like fuck off with like, oh, they don't like that movie, because that's not how they work. I do think a lot of the visual effects in Indiana Jones are really murky and disgusting looking, but it just is all visual effects. Some scenes work really well, some scenes work and there's a de-aging going on. The VES nominating it just affirmed that it was number 3 for me. That's what it did. And what did the VES snub? For in the supporting category, they snubbed Poor Things. And I already thought Poor Things wasn't getting nominated. Some people thought, oh, well, there has to be a Best Picture nominee. Oh, they just like it, so they're going to nominate it. Not how the category works. That movie has less visual effects artists listed than any other movie that's ever been nominated. The bottom 2 are Kubo and All Quiet. Those are the least amount of visual effects team that is credited on IMDb for working on a movie. And Poor Things is even less than that. It just isn't like the same as the other movies, I think. I like filling in those backdrops. It's not. I just don't think it's operating in the same way.
I mean, it was a huge miss that it didn't get supporting visual effects.
It's good that it showed on the short list, and I think BAFTA's going to nominate it. But it's very much like The Shape of Water to me, where it's not actually going to get.
And
it.
did they have a Bake Off here yet?
Yeah, they did, but there's no word on it. I don't think they let in press anymore. I have Poor Things at 9. The only movie I think is less like it is Rebel Moon. I was considering Mission Impossible because I heard that has 2,500 visual effects shots. And there's like way more than people think.
It's a long movie, and like, of course, it has a lot of visual.
No, but it's like a lot. As much as they want to say that there's something practical to it, but it missed a lot of Visual Effects Society nominations, and I just don't. I just think that shows that it's going to be treated the same way as all the other ones, which is not nominated for any Oscars. Napoleon's is a maybe. Big epic battle scenes and like filling in backdrops and adding like fake snow and wind is. There's something there, and
there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Spider-Verse, like, I know people are predicting it, but like, do we really have good reason?
Spider-Verse got 7 nominations at the Visual Effects Society. Now, it's not surprising that it dominates every single animated category, and I will say Elemental got 6 nominations at Visual Effects Society, so like, you know, it's not like the most anything's ever gotten. It was in some categories where it was competing with some live action. It was able to get in like a lot of places, so clearly they're impressed by it, you know? The fact that it showed up on the long list here and the long list at BAFTA.
Yeah.
And then got a good chunk of nominations at VES. I mean, I think there's something to it. Now, most of what Spider-Verse is tools that they give to the artists to work with. And it still seems like that's probably cool to talk about. It's very
what if
different
it's like
than,
so unconventional that they just don't really know what to do with it?
That's very possible. Like, I'm not 100% sold on it. I don't know if BAFTA not nominating it would matter to me. I feel like Oscars would be more likely to nominate it than BAFTA, because BAFTA's never nominated an animated movie at all. Definitely if they did nominate it, I would put it in, but I don't expect them to. Society of the Snow, it's peaking at the right time, and there is an impressive amount of visual effects. The problem with it is that I'm unsure how impressed they'll be with just that a lot of it is like 3D rendered mountains and a lot of backdrops of mountains and like snow and stuff like that.
Well, then there's the plane crash, which is like...
Yeah, aside from the plane
that's what
crash,
they would highlight. That's what they would highlight.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it was impressive that the visual effects were so seamlessly integrated into the movie. Like, I was impressed, but at the same time, maybe there's more like action-y stuff going on in these other movies.
Maybe there's more Napoleon in Napoleon.
Well, Napoleon's like, you know, you made a bunch of little guys like running around in the distance. Like,
it's more than that. The movie looks expensive as fuck. Every set is like created, probably. I think they'd probably highlight the scene when they blast cannons onto like the ice and you see like all these soldiers and horses falling through the ice. Probably all the underwater shots in that were CGI. There's like a top-over shot.
I looked up.
Top-down shot, probably CGI.
Yeah, no, I looked it up, and you're correct about that.
Like, those are really impressive things.
That is one I'm considering. The reason Godzilla's not here is that Godzilla only got 1 nomination at VES, and it was for, like, Best Character Godzilla. The Oscars have never nominated a Godzilla film, and they might be biased. No, Godzilla -1 is kind of different, but at the same time, they are... I feel like there's something a little cliquey about them, where they nominate stuff from, like, big Hollywood studios. The first time they ever nominated an international film was All Quiet last year. And I guess we're thinking maybe they'll do that with Society of the Snow.
I think they could still do it, though, I guess, just because Godzilla -1 is kind of its own thing.
Also, Society of the Snow got a supporting nomination at VES.
Was Godzilla -1 shortlisted at BAFTA?
No. I mean, I was thinking that maybe that could win because of the passion for it. I mean, if it gets in, maybe, sure, but for the nomination,
really
I mean, I don't...
stuff.
I would say, like, it definitely is deserved. Like, there are some crazy, like, big disaster scenes in the movie. There is some really great, like, water stuff. There's this a long take in the beginning where Godzilla's tail swishing around, people are getting tossed and stuff, and I thought like that was enough. And there was a big conversation about how this movie did so much with a little budget. Again, the Bake Off, we have no idea what happened in there or what films could be advantaged or not.
I think you might want to just put Napoleon in at number 5.
I don't quite agree. I think it doesn't quite fit with other types of visual effects nominations I've seen.
You think Society of the Snow fits?
Post-BAFTA update, visual effects, I think, remains a very difficult category for me to predict. Napoleon and Mission Impossible and Poor Things got BAFTA. Those are all on the short list. Napoleon, it could get in. It has a VES supporting and BAFTA, but something about it feels a little like BAFTA-y to me. I don't even know what that means. I'm just not feeling like predicting it. I kind of want to point at Mission Impossible and say that this shortlisted 10 feels a little unusual, and when you look at the types of films that the Oscars nominate, it's like very normal blockbustery movies, and Mission Impossible almost fits that better than other movies. It says that the franchise seems to have this curse where it can't get an Oscar nomination. But at the same time, that was also true about BAFTA, where that movie got visual effects, and it also got sound at BAFTA, right? Yeah, it got 2 nominations at BAFTA. Yeah. Free Guy got nominated at the Oscars without any VES nominations as well. This happened with One and Only Ivan. I mean, that got a character nomination. But, like, really, like, that can happen where a BAFTA film gets in without VES. So I'm actually pretty tempted. I think I might put that in. There were apparently 2,500 visual effects shots in there. I don't see how it's that different from, like, a No Time to Die. And I just can't predict, like, 2 weird nominees. Yeah, it has to be acknowledged that Spider-Verse was always a long shot for visual effects. Most of the push is from people who don't even know, like, which part of the film is visual effects and which part isn't. Like, visually, the movie is groundbreaking, we all know it, but how much of that's animation, how much of that's visual effects? I don't even know if I could personally be upset or not, because I don't know what went into it. That and Godzilla -1, I think that they are outsiders. People will point to interesting visual effects picks from the Oscars, like Kubo and the Two Strings or Ex Machina, but they don't really go for like multiple odd picks a year. Like people tried to predict Mank, people tried to predict Chechnya. This is why I'm definitely not going with Poor Things. Godzilla, Spider-Verse, Society of the Snow. I feel like one of those could get in because they're all like a little bit left field for like visual effects when compared to like the typical blockbuster thing. I think I might try Society of the Snow for this 5th slot. Also, Society of the Snow getting independent visual effects nomination is pretty good, especially for an international film that wasn't really performing at the Guilds. Like, All Quiet didn't do that last year. I have zero confidence in this category. I just have zero confidence.
Animated feature, this is also a tough one. Spider-Verse winning, Boy and the Heron getting nominated. I think Mutant Mayhem's fine. I think people need to stop underestimating that. I think it's going to show up. I think Nemona's showing up.
Yeah.
And we have to consider if Elemental's out.
They got a major snub from the Annies.
Yeah. And why was it major? Because it was the only Pixar film, aside from Lightyear, that they've ever snubbed. The Oscars are actually more harsh towards Pixar films than the Annies.
Yeah.
And they snubbed Finding Dory and The Good Dinosaur and Frozen 2, which also was nominated at the Annies. Like, if you are not the most acclaimed Pixar movie, if you're like dipping below 80 on Rotten Tomatoes, like you don't get nominated usually. But the Oscars might go with Robot Dreams. Now, the Robot Dreams has no precursors, so it's kind of hard to predict, but it does have the Annie nomination for Independent Film, which every year since that has existed, the winner of the category has been nominated for the Oscar, and in all likelihood, this is going to be the winner of the category.
However, all those winners had previous precursors, and Robot Dreams doesn't have any big precursors.
Now, the other weird thing about the Annies this year is that Suzume made it into the non-independent category, which may be very worth considering.
Huge.
Because
also got Golden
I don't know
Globe.
how that happened, because your name got nominated in the independent category.
Maybe just too many people voted for it.
Right.
Which is a huge sign of strength. I mean, also that got into Golden Globe. That was not expected. Why would you not predict Suzume then?
Well, I don't know how much Golden Globe matters. Also, by the way, Nimona got the most nominations at the Annies. So,
Did
like, I'm pretty
Wish-
confident
how did
about
Wish do at the
Nimona.
Annies?
Wish got fucking shut out. Completely shut out. Goodbye. Elemental got 6 nominations despite not being in the main category, so it's not terrible. But Suzume got 7 nominations. Fuck. Okay.
Damn.
Okay, wait, Robot Dreams got 5, though. Robot Dreams did really well, and Suzume did really well, too. I mean, the Oscars, though, they usually have an anime bias. Like, they usually do not nominate anime films. And they're already doing 1, so, like, can you really ask them to do 2? However, you could have probably said the same thing about the Annies, that they have an anime bias. Could Chicken Rugged happen? Because it probably will get the BAFTA nomination, and they did nominate Shaun the Sheep 2. Even Shaun the Sheep 2 got that independent film nomination at the Annies, and Chicken Rugged missed, and the reason it missed is because people think the movie's kind of fine, unfortunately. Yeah. So I'm going to have that out. Mario got 1 nomination for voice acting for Jack Black. And, like, that's funny to me because That's actually a well-animated movie. Like, technically, Mario's a good-looking movie.
Yeah.
And they didn't give a shit.
Post-BAFTA update, even though this conversation has been about whether or not we should put in Suzume or Robot Dreams over Elemental, now I'm kind of like, should we just pick Elemental? It is true that the Oscars are harsher with Disney Pixar than other places, but can you really predict that BAFTA is only getting 2 out of 4? Elemental's still squeezed into BAFTA like it did. Maybe the Annies was a fluke. It was well supported in the Annies overall. It just didn't get Best Film. Still think Suzume and Robot Dreams have a lot against them, and I still think Dawn of the Nugget, like, that should have gotten an Annie Independent nomination. I know that they love stop motion. That's a fair argument that they usually will let one in if one exists. I'm backing down. I'm sticking to Elemental. I'm doing the safe 5.
For documentary feature, Beyond Utopia has been doing pretty well. And I'm going to pull up the stats here because I think a lot of people don't actually know how to predict this category. You can't just go off of what like critics groups are nominating all the time. You have to go off of certain precursors that are very specific. And I'm going to tell you what they are. The Indie Spirit, the Cinema Eye, and the IDA. The Indie Spirit and the IDA in particular. 20 Days in Mariupol is pretty much across the board, like, doing everything we want.
Yeah.
It missed IDA, but it's gotten like basically everything else.
That might win at this point.
And it helps to be a documentary from Sundance, and also winning awards at Sundance also helps. Yeah. It did that as well. So I have no problem predicting that. Beyond Utopia has been doing very well. DGA, PGA, big Sundance one. Cinema Eye Audience, which I like to look at, but it did miss Gotham and
You're
Indie
like an
Spirit,
expert in this
and
category.
also the IDA. So Beyond Utopia is unfortunately not locked. Four Daughters did well. Also, IDA was like nuts this year, so like a lot of these are missing from it. Indie Spirit, the only films that are on the whole long list that got nominated Indie Spirit are Four Daughters, Going to Mars, and that's it. So if you don't predict those two, then you're not doing the game right. Four Daughters also won the Gotham Award. That is an 11-year-long streak going on right now, that if you win the Gotham Award, you get nominated, okay? So even though Going to Mars and Four Daughters are not like doing amazing at the critics groups, like it is just something we can overlook. Going to Mars not only got IDA and Indie Spirit, and by the way, if you're predicting that this category has no IDA films in it, what are you doing? That's why, and Going to Mars has the best performance out of any of the ones that have IDA because it also got PGA. PGA and Indie Spirit and IDA? Are you kidding me? I'm gonna predict it, all right? Then there's American Symphony, which has Critics' Choice, PGA, Cinema Eye Audience,
and 2 shortlists.
and two shortlists.
additional
I don't
shortlists.
know how much that matters. Like I will take it into account a little bit, but I think this branch is so different. I'm not saying American Symphony is safe, and oftentimes they snub shit like that. That's biography documentaries, like the Ebert one, the Jane Goodall one, and of course the Mr. Rogers one.
Don't you think maybe the Bobby Wine project gets in? Doesn't that have really good precursors?
Bobby Wine won the IDA, and it also got a DGA nomination.
Oh,
Oh wait, I didn't even realize this. It won the Cinema Eye Audience Award too. Holy shit! Okay, yep. Good.
Holy shit,
Goodbye.
really?
Goodbye. This may look like a weird 5 to people, to those uninformed, but international feature, I am confuso. The top 4 is Zone of Interest, Society of the Snow, Fallen Leaves. I think is probably okay. Maybe it doesn't get BAFTA, but I think it's been doing pretty well this season. People seem to be really digging it. And you have The Taste of Things, which is also, I mean, I don't think it's locked, but I think it's doing pretty well.
It's probably in there.
It's very unlikely for there to be 4 Cannes films in here. And Perfect Days has been spotty in a way that I'm unhappy with. And
Yeah.
it didn't even make the BAFTA
In a way
list.
that's like really scary.
That's why I have a feeling that it's a hero and its decision to leave.
Yeah.
So I'm predicting a snub.
Unfortunately.
It's just been a feeling of mine. I don't like it, and I wish Koji Yakusho was getting Best Actor and stuff, but it's not happening. So I'm predicting a snub, and the contenders I can see taking it over it are as follows: Teacher's Lounge, which hasn't been doing, like, it could have done better. It could have done a little better. The Monk and the Gun is from a director who got nominated for a surprise movie before, but I don't know if it's going to repeat. I'm tempted to go with Totem.
That's like pretty random. Like I don't think a lot of people are thinking like that.
I heard it's really good, and I think it's kind of a tearjerker, and maybe a little bit, but not quite, but a little bit reminiscent of The Quiet Girl for me. Even The Quiet Girl, like, got some like key BAFTA long lists that made it a no-brainer to put it in. There's something to it. Like, it's pretty acclaimed. Totem is an 85 on Metacritic, 97 Rotten Tomatoes. Like,
Oh, wow.
It's one of those things where I'm kind of, I just have my eye out on it. I really want to see it. Original song, I'm Just Ken, What Was I Made For are locked in. The Fire Inside's number 3. Diane Warren is always number 3. She's going to get nominated, all right? It's going to happen. Road to Freedom from Rustin. Lenny Kravitz has been getting the nominations. John Batista, he's a huge thing for music people. The music branch shortlisted him for score for this film. The Grammys go nuts for him. So in terms of like being a music industry guy, absolutely, that's what he is. And I think that he will get a nomination for this. And there's a little bit of a narrative there, like the documentaries about him and stuff like that. And ultimately, I think that these 5 have a much better case than anything else. I don't know why The Color Purple would get nominated when the Critics' Choice couldn't even go for it in song. I think that the Past Lives song is just, it's a little too low-key. The Spider-Verse song is kind of possible.
It's hard to make a case for anything else.
That's what I mean.
Honestly.
That's why the top 5, I'm very comfortable going with it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna like piece out for the shorts because you have all the input and I didn't do the research.
Yeah, I have some research here. For live action short, I'm completely perplexed and willing to predict quite outside of Gold Derby on this one. Or maybe I am sure because I think Gold Derby's got it wrong. But that's also why I'm insecure. Henry Sugar. Is this really how Wes Anderson's going to get an Oscar? The thing with this category this year is that there's a lot of celebrities involved in films. You have him, you have Pedro Almodovar, who, mind you, got snubbed for the Tilda Swinton one that people liked more than Strange Way of Life. So I'm inclined to think he's actually not going to get nominated. You have a movie with David Oyelowo in it. You have a film with Ben Whishaw in it. And you have a movie called The Shepherd, which is a Disney Plus family-oriented 40-minute short about how hope will guide you home from the war while you're riding a plane. And Alfonso Cuarón produced it. And he helped get that Alice Rohrwacher short nominated last year. So can we underestimate that? I might. All right, that's why I'm having trouble with this, because I actually think that the short film branch, the branch that nominates these films, or whoever is involved, are a little gatekeepy, and I don't think that they're just going to go, oh, there's a celebrity, oh, I know that director, I know this producer, let's put them all in. So I'm going to concede on the following. I think Henry Sugar, people liked it a lot, and they let it in, and so I'm going to say that actually does get nominated, and then Wes Anderson wins his Oscar, but I'm not as confident about it. I'm not, like, sold on it like other people are. I think that the David Oyelowo one, although Letterboxd is kind of meh on it, there's something about it that I think seems palatable enough where it could just show up. Now, they say David Oyelowo is very good in it. The Ben Whishaw one, on the other hand, seems a little goofy, and I don't know that quite gets in because of that. The Anne Frank gift shop, I call BS on this. I think that people are doing this because they saw that it said Anne Frank, and they said, well, that's short film Oscar bait. But really what this is it's a dark comedy. It's filmed like any like single camera sitcom, where it's a bunch of people going around a table and like workshopping the idea of like an Anne Frank gift shop as like it's like a dark comedy thing. It doesn't look like it's particularly well done or expensive or interesting. It kind of looks like a YouTube skit. And I think that will keep the movie from being in, because I just think the craft doesn't seem like quite there. I want to predict Red, White, and Blue, because this seems like the issue movie where it's about a woman who's like working at a diner and she has 2 kids and she has to like travel across state lines to get an abortion. Most of the reactions for this that I've seen are pretty good. There's a short called Invincible that seems to be one of the most well-liked of all these shorts. Seems very cinematic and well-made. An Avocado Pit also seems like a well-done short that is about a trans sex worker, and people say that it doesn't lean into like what last year's live action nominee Night Ride did, which is like, oh, there's a trans person and therefore they're going to be like under a threat. And people seem to like that and appreciate that about the short. The Alfonso Cuarón short that he's producing for Disney Plus seems kind of like inspiration bait. I feel like the nominating committee might just feel like this is not capturing the spirit of what this category is about. I actually settled on yellow here. It just feels like the kind of thing that they often do, and also my brain tells me the title's gonna show up. Like, I don't know what you want to make of that. For documentary short, the ABCs of book banning is Gold Derby's number 1. And I've heard that it's all right, but it's very much issue and will represent something that the Oscars want to bring attention to, which is the issue of book banning right now. You should probably be predicting The Last Repair Shop. This is directed by Chris Bowers, composer of Green Book, subject of Concerto is a Conversation, and also Ben Proudfoot, who won the Oscar for The Queen of Basketball. Okay, so that kind of thing definitely can indicate that you are getting in. Another film that has some big filmmakers behind it is Last Song from Kabul. This is actually co-directed by Kevin MacDonald, who did The Mauritanian, The Last King of Scotland, and also won a documentary Oscar. Also the subject, like this is a story of young orphan girls whose music school was closed after the Taliban took over. I'm very comfortable predicting this as well. Camp Courage is a Netflix documentary, and Netflix has been decent getting stuff in here before. It's about a girl displaced by the war in Ukraine. Another issue documentary that I think is a good shot is Deciding Vote. Being only 20 minutes does make me a little bit weary because they do tend to go long in this category. But for some reason, the one movie I think that people are completely blanking on is Nai Nai and Waipo, which is a documentary about the director's two grandmothers. And actually, this director has a movie that is going to be in the Sundance competition, which I'm excited to see. So I'm having that in. I just have a feeling about it, all right? The Barber of Little Rock is a maybe. Black Girls Played the Story of Hand Games. One that I would consider putting in, Bear. It's one of the few movies this year that has like 3.7 or above on Letterboxd. Then there's Oasis, which some people think is really good and actually apparently plays just like a live action short. For animated short, I'm not gonna deny Letter to a Pig. This is like a memory piece from a Holocaust survivor. I do think 95 Senses might get in. That might be one where I disagree with Gold Derby, although it's number 6, so I actually am pretty justified in doing it. The animation seems cool. It's one of the more well-liked ones. I actually shuffled these predictions around a lot. I actually don't see them going very kiddie in this category lately, and Pete feels a little too kiddie for me. Even Once Upon a Studio, like, I don't know if I'm biased because I watched this and thought it was like kind of dumb. Like, is it too much of an advertisement is my question. Combining all the Pixar characters and just doing like non-stop Easter eggs, like, is that what they think this category is for? And I'm gonna say that maybe they just don't go for it. Like, I don't know if that's bold, but I ended up going with Smoke because they like weird looking stop motion people. Now you could say the same about Dog Apartment. Smoke also I just think has a baitier subject matter. Maybe it's too much to have that and Letter to a Pig in the same category, but I also am just gonna go with Pachyderm because I heard that that is moving and people generally like it, and A Kind of Testament, which may be a little stranger, but they do go for strange things in this category sometimes, and it is one of the more well-liked ones. So this is a little bit of an odd 5, especially when you compare it to Gold Derby, but I just settled upon it. I don't know what to tell you. For some reason, Gold Derby has Eva. I just don't have a huge feeling about it either way, and I'm not really sure why it's like number 5 and so many people are predicting it, so I'm just gonna say that's one of the ones that misses from them. There's one called War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko, which is like if Pixar made a war film, and the reviews are kind of divisive on it. A lot of the reactions are divisive, but it does look like it's short film bait, but the animation looks very impressive. I'm gonna say no. There's one called 27 that I think a lot of people are predicting, and it's really giving My Year of Dicks, and maybe that's why people are predicting it, honestly, and I don't know if that's a good reason or not. I'm Hip is directed by the guy who did Moana and Aladdin and The Princess and the Frog and The Little Mermaid, but it's 4 minutes long and it's just about like a cat who's claiming to be hip, and that's really it. I think Our Uniform is actually possible too. I don't know why it's the lowest on Gold Derby. It seems to have some of the most innovative and interesting animation, and so those are the Oscar predictions. Hopefully I don't have to change too many of them because of BAFTA, but I'm willing to because I just want to be right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Are you going to be the most right person about the Oscars?